Hey, welcome to Unstoppable Agent. This is the show where real estate agents come to get tips on how to build their business, build their life, and build a life of impact and significance. I'm your host, Brian White, and I am super excited that you decided to join us today. We have an amazing guest, hails out of California. So let me bring him on. Shanne Carvalho, welcome. Glad to have you.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for having me. And yeah, I do hail from the west coast of California, Monterey Bay, just south of the Silicon Valley,
Oh,
and
right on.
born,
Okay.
born and raised here.
That welcome. Glad to have you. We had a little bit of time to chat before, so I got a little bit of your story, but our audience didn't. Let me just start though by congratulating you because you're here because you just won your second Icon Award. That's the highest award that you could possibly get at EXP, and you just earned your second. So congratulations on that.
Thanks so much. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
It's
it's
probably
kind of
accurate.
cool.
Yeah.
It's a little better than just getting a plaque, though. It's a little better than just getting a piece of acrylic. You got a little something else with that. You want to talk about what the Icon Award means to you?
Yeah, it's interesting because I everybody gets excited about, hey, you get your $16,000 stock award. And that is super exciting. Don't get me wrong, I'm super excited about that. But I don't think I really appreciated how much more it was until I was in Orlando recently at the shareholder summit. They did an event for us the day after everything ended, and I got to sit with 2,000 of my colleagues. Well, not all 2,000. There's like 2,400 of us. Not everybody was there, but there was at least 1,500 there. And just getting to spend the day networking and sharing, and just realizing how forthcoming everybody is, with sharing their knowledge and their tips and their successes, and also building more referral relationships. So really, like, it was no longer like, hey, you get your name up and you get this acrylic and then you get this stock. It was more like, now you're part of a like exclusive community, like an elite community that can help you level up. Because after 23 years in the business, I still am trying to be better every day and learning every day. And
So good.
it's great to have that kind of talent around you. Another thing, really quick, and I'll turn it back over to you. But
There you go.
I also realized that I was always the young one because I started young. I'm not the young guy anymore, and that really hit me hard on this last trip.
That's a great observation. XP is full of young, talented, hungry people who just get it and get after it. I love what you said there because Icon is a massive financial award. It's a really big deal. But you saw the real value in the EXP model, and that's the collaboration because we're all owners in the company and you were with the top producers in the company. Everybody's happy to share. Like we're sharing best
Right.
practice. Hey, what's working for you? Hey, what's going on in your market? What are you seeing? And just a super collaborative environment. So that's awesome. It's fun to get to the conferences and get together. Plus, and I forgot his name, but the dude that was dancing and just
Oh,
absolutely just crushed it
oh,
was
so you
amazing.
were there. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I recorded that. I could share that with you offline if you want. I recorded that whole thing. I was
that'd be
like,
great.
wow, hopefully he gets a raise after that.
He earned it for sure. He earned MC duties for life. For life. Absolutely famous. You started talking about it a little bit a minute ago. I want to transition to you and your story. So you mentioned that you've been in business for 23 years. So what you got started early? Why? And what's kept you after it for all these years?
I'll try to keep it short since I know we don't have all day, but I guess
Sure.
the condensed version is I grew up building. My dad was a general contractor.
Okay.
When he retired, I was supposed to be, I'm the oldest of four boys. I was supposed to be the next one in line. I love construction. I love building. In fact, I still am involved to a certain extent, but my brother below me took over the business, and I wanted to follow the path of going into mortgage and real estate. And anyway, it was funny because in junior high, I idolized my best friend's brother-in-law. And so I'm from Portuguese. My parents are Portuguese. They're from the Azores Islands. And so by chance, this guy was Portuguese. And I was just like, I don't know, he became like my idol. So he drove like a BMW and he told us he made like 100,000 a year. I was an eighth grader. This guy was like cool. I don't know if you remember when you were a kid, you just look up. Anyway, I was like, I want to be like this guy. And so it's interesting because then I went to college. I went to San Jose State. I was working at Wells Fargo Bank, and I would work with merchants and stuff. And this real estate broker would come in every day. And I was always trying to sell him something because we always had some kind of a competition. Anyway, one day this broker told me, he's like, I appreciate the fact that you're always trying to sell me something, but it's like, have you thought about maybe looking into something that'll pay you more and you want to come see me? So I went to see him after work, and he got me going on the real estate principles course to get my real estate license. And a few months later, I had a job offer through a buddy of mine to go to Seattle and work for a national brokerage. And that kind of launched the mortgage real estate career. And it's interesting because I don't want to be flexing or throwing out numbers or whatever, but let's just say that before I was 30, not only was I making six figures, but I was doing that in a month. And
Good.
so it's interesting how there was just this interest from a young age. And then there was like the construction part, then I went to the financing part, and then finally in 2009 I crossed over completely into sales. And now I've built it into a sales, my team, flip and investment. I have an Airbnb business. We have a home design store. I have my own
Right on.
stager, our warehouse. We're full service. And yeah, hopefully that kind of gets you caught up. But like I said, I could spend all day with you. There's so much
Yeah, that's awesome, and I love that story. So, did you go to college? Did you get a degree?
I went to junior college, which I loved
Okay.
here locally, which is
Yep.
one of the best junior colleges. I wish it was a 4 year because I would have gotten a degree. I was an honor student with three part-time jobs and two sports. I played football and golf. I don't know how I'm balanced all that, did great. Finally got out of the parents' house and went into the Bay Area to live on my own. And I wasn't really a bad kid, but it's just like, hey, you can go out to bars, you can go out and socialize, you can. Anyway, long story short, school just college was boring, and I was always one of those guys that had issues like focus, like the attention. Like
Yeah.
I'm really good at learning through reading. And so I was always pretty intelligent. Like I cruised through, I was like 3.5, 3.6 GPA. Well, in college, when I went to upper division, I really lost interest. And when I got that job offer, I actually dropped out of my upper division business to pursue my dreams. And then
And
when I did come
I
back
love it,
and do,
and ask that question because I think I've got college age kids, and we're having the conversations, right? Because unless you're going to, unless you be doctor, attorney, engineer, right? There are certainly jobs that require a degree, and you should go get one. But there are many of them, including our profession, where you can build an amazing life. You got to educate, you got to grow, you got to be lifelong learners. But that does not mean you need to spend $150,000 on a 4 year degree.
yeah,
So
I just had this conversation with somebody, and I did get a lot of slack from certain people. And it was interesting because I was always keeping quiet. And I'll never forget, I was at an event for, I don't want to say too much detail, but I was with somebody at an event. And this was someone that was always beating me up about not finishing college. And they were bragging about their new jobs and stuff. And it was funny because I was sitting there thinking to myself, I make more money than all eight of them put together in
yeah.
a year. And when it's interesting because they've always made me feel like less than. And it was at that point that I started realizing it's like, you know what, whatever. You live for you, you do you, and
You do you.
everybody has
Yeah.
their different speed.
I love it. I love it. That's so great. So you didn't start 23 years ago. You couldn't have started at EXP, but been here now for at least a couple of years. What was it that you saw that made you make a switch?
I've been approached before, but I was under the impression that corporate was like a video arcade game and this was a fad and this was like I didn't realize like I never really got a proper introduction or really got to understand who founded this and
Mhm.
how brilliant it really was. And basically once it was presented to me by these guys, really what pushed me and made it such a possibility was the pandemic. They shut us down where we couldn't work in our office building.
Yep.
Our broker, like me and another guy that had his team, we had private offices. We had our teams working in our private offices during the pandemic. One day the broker's like, you can't be here. It's like ordinance with a county or city.
Sure.
So I was like, these guys were in my ear. I met the guy who sponsored me. I was sponsored by Mike Sherrard. He was a marketing guru. I had met
Uh-huh.
him on a mastermind because during the pandemic, a lot of other people I met in different coaching and conferences and stuff started doing masterminds so we could all work together on
Yeah.
brainstorming how to navigate the new market. At that point, by chance, I met him. Then we were talking. Then I met the guy that brought him in. And then it was like the perfect storm. Like, I can't work in a physical location. They're cloud based. All of a sudden, we got all these people that have never worked remote that have kids at home from school. They're trying to work on a computer at home. They're trying to be on a Zoom call. They didn't have a camera. Like, it was like you literally disarmed, like the traditional brokerage got completely like just, I don't know how to explain it, but
And we were built for this. And we were
exactly.
designed for exactly this situation.
But do you see how things change? Now all of a sudden it's like the laughing stock is like the superstar because they're already here. Like they're here every day. They did not miss a step. If anything, EXP thought they were going to take a hit. They cut back their support. When I first came over, they had a hard time keeping up with our production. Not
Yeah.
mine specifically, but they would have a hard time keeping up with. I just want
It'd
to.
be great if
Like
it
I
was
said,
yours.
I'm not
Yeah.
that kind of person. But what I meant though is they just were a little backlogged because they had cut back. They didn't
Sure.
expect to have this surge in agents, and so for a minute, part of growing pains, but for a minute, it was like, oh, it's a little tough to get stuff through. But then within 4 or 5 months, it was all good, and it's been good since then.
Yeah, it's amazing how, as we've seen various changes in the market, we've been able to flex in that and maintain our profitability, maintain our growth, even in down situations. So it's because we're debt free, we don't have any of that mess and that leverage that a lot of fast growing companies do. So if you were to give advice to yourself, your new agent self, or giving advice to a new agent right now, what advice would you give?
There's just, I guess, one of the main things, like excluding what's going on in the market, just one of the main things. I wish I'd go back and be more meticulous with
Okay.
building my database and more meticulous with staying in touch with my database and more meticulous about being consistent with everything I do, including my time blocks.
It's good.
Because I've been successful, but there's certain things that I could have been 5 times that.
Let's dive in on time blocking for a second. So, what would you do differently, or what do you do today that you wish you'd done sooner?
So today, even I am human. Sometimes I fall off that wagon, but the last year it's been a little more challenging for me because I've had so much growth and I've opened up some additional things. But traditionally, and I am actually falling back in the last month or so to this consistency, but I block out an hour every morning for a certain level of prospecting. I block out mornings for like meetings and being in the office, and then I block out sometime in the afternoons for meeting with clients or going out in the field. So the core coaching was a program that I was part of. It is like there's people that like all these different gurus out there for
Sure.
their coaching and stuff. So for me, like I'm not really stuck to one. Like I've taken what works for me and I've built my own thing. So for me, the time blocking, like the actual prospecting, you're trying to build your business, 1 hour every morning. Mondays, I do my top 50 VIPs. Those are clients that refer me business, clients I do a lot of business with. It's not necessarily 50, it's just called that. I have like 84 or something. So I contact them every Monday. Not every single one. I rotate, so I touch them at least once a month.
Yeah.
Tuesdays is client updates. So anybody that's in escrow, anybody that's looking, anybody we're bringing to market, updating them. Wednesday, getting in touch with your past that aren't necessarily VIPs, but just because your top 100 past clients.
Sure.
And then on Thursdays, old leads, dead leads, following up with people that maybe you lost touch with. Then on Friday, it's all about business building, like your local CPA, maybe a little coffee shop in your neighborhood. Like those are like, that's just like baseline. Like if you could do that, just that alone, that should generate plenty of business to keep you busy. And then
Yeah,
there's
and you're an icon, by the way, right? So you're one of the top 2 to 3% in an 83,000 person company. I think so often people think, oh, I've got a lead gen all day, every day. And maybe if you've got no business, you should be lead genning all day, every day. But you can still, just as long as you do it consistently, you can do well.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And yeah, with agents that are brand new that don't feel like they have anything to work with, I always recommend that they start building within their sphere and not
Yes.
cold calling. I've had a couple agents there in the phone book cold call. I'm not a cold caller, but even if you are, like I always talk about highest probability or highest conversion rate. And I encourage them to track what they do so they can figure out what their highest conversion is for them. Because clearly, I mean, you got to be efficient with your time. If you're one for 150 cold calling, but you're 1 for 10 in your sphere, it's a no-brainer where you should be putting in your time.
And by the way, you're going to enjoy that. Like you're going to, when you're working your sphere, those are people like you. Those are people that you probably, hopefully, enjoy spending time with. So doubling down on that is going to yield a better result. Shane, thank you for joining me today. Any parting thoughts or comments before we wrap up?
Well, I really appreciate you having me, Brian.
Yeah.
I guess just my parting thoughts, just being in the business for so long, is I've been in the best markets and in the worst markets. The market's never to blame for your success or failure. Honestly, like people need to know that and take it from me, right? Like 20 years ago, I couldn't have given this advice, but after being in the business for over 20 years and look at our lifetime, and we've seen the worst and the best. And I have had a couple bad years, but it's me. It's always me. If agents can embrace that and really, because there's a huge failure rate in our industry, right? So it's like some people are just not cut out for it at the end of the day. But if you do all this stuff and you stay confident and you believe and you can't make it, maybe you're not cut out for it. But you can't blame the market. And if you are doing everything you need to do, then you've done the best you can. But I bet you 90% of those people haven't done what they need to do.
Yeah, there's a great book I read years ago that's changed my world, and that's Jocko Willink's book, Extreme Ownership.
I got
And
to write that down. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's called Extreme Ownership. And so he was a Navy SEAL. He was the Navy SEAL leader, back in the Osama bin Laden days. And the whole book is, look, it's always your fault. So as a leader, you would take, if you're going on a mission and somebody in your crew messes up, okay, what could you have done to train them better? What could you have done to plan better? How could you have done more lead gen? How could you have done more? And if you take the approach of, hey, it's always on me. Now you got to delegate. It's not a control. He's totally not a control freak. It's just a take ownership for what you can do and then make that happen. So Shane, you've been awesome. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it, and go be unstoppable.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I'm going to check out that book. Thanks so much for having me, Brian. Take care, man.